Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. So today I got a video in which I am reacting to my viewers' retail horror stories. These are comments that you guys left, and I'm going to be reacting to a bunch of them. 42 comments that I'm going to be reacting to in total in this video, so it's probably going to be a decently sized video. I also do want to start off this video by thanking my channel moderators. Thank you guys for helping me to moderate my streams and my chats. I appreciate it a lot. You guys helping me out with that. You guys are awesome. And I also want to thank my Patreon supporters and my channel members and everybody who super chatted me and sent me super thanks since the last channel update video. So thank you guys for the support on that. So in this video, this is basically part 2 of this. I'm considering making this into a series, but if you guys want me to continue with a series like this, you just let me know in the comments if you like these type of videos. I don't want it to seem like I'm milking this type of series, so if I do videos like this in the future, it would be like once a month, just not to make sure that I'm milking it. But basically, we've done a bunch of videos covering retail and retail horror stories, and I did a video a couple months back where I actually reacted to my viewers, retail horror stories. This was actually not an idea of mine. This is actually an idea of yours. You guys told me in the comments that, can you react to some of our, horror stories in retail? And I was like, sure. And I made a post, and a bunch of people, replied, and it was a pretty positive video. A lot of people were very, happy with the video. They liked it. And then I made another post, and a lot of people, left comments. And basically, the comments I asked people to leave is I asked people, tell me about, horrible times when you worked in retail or in the food industry, or even just in general a bad boss. It doesn't necessarily have to be retail, but the theme of the video is mostly focusing on retail and just focusing on those toxic managers. And so in total in this video, I have picked out 42 comments. We will be reading 42 comments, reacting to it, so it is going to be a decently sized video. And some of these stories are funny, some of them are sad, some of them are disgusting, but there's all different types of stories and a lot of, horrible things that people have gone through in retail. And, it just shows that some of these managers and these management and also the customers in these places, they just treat their workers like absolute garbage. And I think this video also will help other people probably get out of that environment, not want to work in those type of places, and also bring it to more attention to how much retail workers are just mistreated so badly. So again, thank you guys for the support. Thank you guys for it. It means a lot to me. I like making videos for you like this for you guys. Without your support, I would not be here with this channel today. So thank you guys. It means a lot to me. You guys helped me get here to where I am today. So anyways, let's start off by reading these comments now. Okay, guys, so now let's react to my viewers' retail horror stories here, and I chose 42 stories in total, so we got a lot of comments to read through. But the first one is from Toby Lacrosse 3020. Hey, it's Toby again, Patrick. I was the one with the Burlington story last time now. I have a story from when I was working at Walmart. It was a nightmare. They don't even train you on your actual position, at least not me. Their training was on a PC, and it was all about chemical spills and active shooters and slips and falls, nothing to do with online order picking, which was my position, which is basically grabbing stuff in store for people that order stuff online so it can be shipped out. But when it came to actually do that, I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't trained for it, and the way they had it set up, with this like smartphone device thing they use, and everything was number letter labeled. So let's say cheese was in aisle A7, so I go to A7, grab the cheese and put it in a basket, and so on and so forth. And the manager would legit cuss at me in front of other employees because my times were off. She said I was too slow as F, and that I needed to get my shit together or I wasn't going to be her employee much longer. I tried to explain that the training course didn't even explain anything about the position, and I'm new to this. I'm trying my best, and she pretty much just kept cussing at me every day. So I finally had enough one day and went out to do my next pick. In the middle of it, I said to myself, you know what? I'm better than this. I shouldn't stay here and be belittled daily. When I show up, I'm going to try my best with the little knowledge I have about the position, and walked out, threw my name tag and Walmart vest on the bench before you exit outside, and left. I called my ride to get me and explained to them that the piece of crap that Walmart are now, and how they treat their employees. Anyway, that's my story of Walmart. Thanks, Professional, for reading. P.S. Won't be doing any more retail jobs. Burlington and Walmart ruined it for me. I feel like most retail managers get big heads and always become massive scumbags. And about this, Toby, is what I'll say about this isn't just in Walmart. This is very common in a lot of stores. And this is really what I hate about a lot of retail companies. They make you go to this training or they make you do the training online. And when they make you do the training online, it has nothing to do with your actual job. It instead just talks about things like customer service, basic things like that, which I agree it is part of the job, but the training itself that you go to, you would imagine they would train you on, how to actually do the job, like, running the register and, and finding things in the aisle, how to stock things, how to correctly label everything. You'd think that they would show you that on the training, but a lot of times they don't. And so the training was just useless. So when I got trained, I basically spent 5 hours in a training class, and all they basically did in that class was they just talked about customer service. That's it. They didn't talk anything about the register. They didn't talk about anything about how to stock items, how to read labels, did not talk anything like that at all. And what I really hate about a lot of these companies is what these companies do is that the first day, they maybe will train you for like an hour, and then they'll leave you. And that's basically what happened to me when I worked in retail, is they trained me for basically like an hour, and then they left me, and then they expected me to basically be able to do everything on my own. And I was there on the cash register by myself, and so many customers were coming into the store. And one of the things I never got trained on is I never got trained on how to do returns. They never trained me how to do returns. I actually had to figure it out on my own, just clicking the different buttons on the register and figuring out how to do a full return myself. I also was never trained on how to use the photo machine, and customers would constantly complain about that to me. And whenever I would ask supervisors for help with it, they would say the same thing. They would say, oh, I can't train you right now. I'll train you tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. And then one day a customer said, can you help me print some photos? Or no, it was, can you help me take a passport photo? And my supervisor had basically told me is, go and take the passport photo. I said, I don't know how to do that. And she said, you've been working here for months and you don't know how to do that. And I said, you never trained me. And she said, well, you're going to learn today. And that was basically it. She gave me a massive attitude. And that's what I'll say about this, Toby, is that don't let these managers get to you. A lot of these managers are idiots, is that they basically think that, one day they show you some things and that you're going to be a complete expert. And the thing is, even if somebody's doing their job wrong, and I'm not saying you are, but even if somebody was, there's no reason to curse at somebody. So there's no reason to, curse at somebody. There's no reason to use foul language. And a manager that basically talks like that to their employees, especially in a store where there are customers, that is extremely unprofessional behavior. And I would not work for a manager like that. So I agree with you. I agree with you on your views. It's good that you walked out. I should have done the same thing. That was my biggest mistake, is I stayed 6 years in retail. I should have walked out the exact same way that you did. But yeah, don't work in retail anymore. I'm glad that you're not going to. It's not worth it, and it just affects your mental health too much. Next comment is from your boy IJ90. I used to work at this retail store, and my boss was the definition of scummy. Like the kind of guy who would forget to give you your lunch break, mysteriously vanish for 3-hour meetings at the bar down the street. Oh my god. Yeah, I had stuff like this happen where I would have managers that would, go up to the office and they would just sit in the office and they would just sit on their phone. I had a manager who was just caring about his lumber business, and he ran that as a side business, and he did not even help us down at the store at all. And when I would try to call him for my break, there would be no answer, or he would tell me, 30 minutes, 30 minutes would pass and there would be no answer. And then an hour would pass, there would be no answer. Just horrible. One day, a customer came in trying to return a blender that looked like it had survived a house fire. Oh my god. No receipt, covered in something, I think it was spaghetti sauce, and it smelled like burnt rubber. I told him politely, sorry, I can't return it in that condition. They flipped out and demanded a manager. Oh man, and I bet your boss came by and made you return it. Let's see. Here comes my boss, strolling up like he's about to save the day. He looks at the blender, looks at the customer, then looks at me and says, why are you wasting their time? Just give them a new one. Oh my god. They obviously did something stupid with that blender. I'm standing there like, what? That's not policy. But he literally grabs the nicest brand new $200 blender off the shelf, hands it over, and tells the customer, we value your loyalty. This is what I never understand about these companies, is these companies will do everything to please customers that basically scam. I've had customers that come in to try to return cookies where 90% of the cookies are eaten, and I asked them, why are you returning this? Or, oh, they tasted bad. They were bad. Well, why are 90% of the cookies eaten then? And I've even, the most ridiculous thing I've seen is I've seen customers return the Crest, white strips, the stuff that you put in your teeth. It's like really expensive, and they used most of it up, and they said, oh, they didn't work. And that, and my managers basically made me return a lot of that stuff too. Here's the kicker. The second they walk out, he turns to me and says, you're paying for that out of your check. What? No. That is illegal. He can't make you do that. If he basically returns a blender and gives the customer a brand new one off the shelf, you are not responsible. No, 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 no. He can't make you pay for that. No, no. I laughed because I thought it was a joke. Spoiler, it wasn't. He actually tried docking my pay over it. I had to call HR and threaten to report him before he backed off. And the best part, 2 weeks later, I caught him trying to resell the burned blender at full price in the clearance aisle. Oh my god. Oh my god. I bet this guy isn't fired yet too. Oh man, that I got no words for that. This trying to sell a burnt blender in the clearance section. And I would also, when you're going to a clearance section, guys, I would also be very careful in what's in the clearance section because it's stuff that stores are trying to get rid of really quickly. They really are desperate to get rid of it. And stuff that's on clearance, if it doesn't get sold, most of the time it gets thrown out. So just keep that in mind. That it's stuff that stores are trying desperately to sell. Sometimes there's something good you can find in clearance, but a lot of times there's some really bad stuff. So just keep an eye on that. Next one is from Mystical Rays 3646. Hey, professional. I'm going to tell you a story that actually happened to one of my close friends while they were working at Taco Cabana. That happened about a year ago. Now, I don't know if you're going to find this story funny or messed up, but here it goes. This happened during the day shift when my friend was fixing some food behind the counter. Now, my friend has a coworker who I believe has a bit of autism. This is important to the story, and you'll see what I mean. Later during the shift, an old lady came inside the store wanting to order food. But my friend's coworker, who has autism, actually cussed out the lady for some reason. Wait, what? An old lady came in wanting to order stuff, and this guy cursed her out, and so she left the store. For context of the story, my friend has a cousin who is fairly built and buff. For more context, the autism coworker doesn't know that my friend has a cousin, and so my friend's huge cousin thought that it would be funny to scare the crap out of the coworker into pretending to be the old lady's son. Later during the shift, his cousin came into the store and cussed out the coworker for cussing out his mother. The autistic coworker was actually scared and apologized to my friend's cousin several times, and his cousin left the store after that. And after the shift was over, my friend and his cousin were laughing their asses off. But that's how it ended. Now, like what I said before, I don't know if you're going to find this funny or messed up. But anyways, I enjoyed your content as always. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Mystical Rays 3646. But I don't know why somebody would treat a customer like that. But I'm surprised that this coworker didn't get fired, or he didn't that he didn't get fired or written up for something like that. Because if I did that in retail, if I cursed out a customer, I 100% would have been written up. We were never allowed to do something like that. But I guess he learned his lesson. He's probably never going to curse another customer out again. Next one is from Kongfoot Master 21. Hello, Pro. I used to work in a food chain restaurant back in 2022. I actually started in December of 2021. After I graduated from high school, since I live in a small town, the place hiring lots of people to appease the locals because they don't want people not from the town to open a business and yet not using local workers. So most of us who applied to work there is just a part-timer, not a full-time worker. Of course, they didn't tell us about this during interview. We got paid like around $6 a day. In Indonesia, our pay is real bad. $6 is 100,000 IDR in Indonesia. With that money, you can survive for a few days depending on the place you live. And most of the time, a part-timer only able to work for 10 days maximum in a month, which gets us $60 a month max. It's around 1 million IDR in Indonesia, which unfortunately is common in Indonesia. But even then, I only got to work for 10 days a month twice, December 2021 and January 2022. After that, they start decreasing our work days. Now, the thing is, not only our pay is bad, the manager and senior also play favorites. Oh no, I know where this is going. There's going to be certain workers that they are going to favor, and they're going to treat other workers like crap and probably cut their hours. Like there's maybe around 10 or 20 part-timers, kind of forgot, and they intentionally chose the same group of people over and over again. These people were chosen because they like to suck up to the senior, and since the manager is, how could I explain it, a little bit passive, like he just follow what our senior decides, not making his own choices and rules despite being the manager. So those suck-ups actually then hired as a contract worker. Not only that, the part-timers were gradually given less and less work day to the point that only working a day in a month, which is crazy. What? Another funny thing is that they expect us part-timers to always be available in case of emergency. So me and the other part-timer already had something to do that day, and they act like it's our fault on being not able to work that day. You treat us like shit, but when you need help, you suddenly remember us, not even give a damn about us having something to do when you ask for help. And since I always got the night shift, we always get back from work at 1 a.m., and we always start our work at 3 p.m., which means that we work for 10 hours only to get paid for $6 a day. Never again I work in a place like that. Right now I'm in college, and hopefully after I get a better work than before. And I wish you all the best, Kong, and I hope that you get a better job and you never have to work in that type of environment again. But that's how a lot of retail managers are. Is for some reason, I don't understand this why, a lot of retail managers, what they will do is they expect you to basically be available 24/7 whenever they need it. And for some reason, I never understood the logic in this, is that if people don't show up to work, they will basically go after you, text you, harass you, demand that you show up to work. And if you don't want to come into work on your day off, a day that you're not supposed to be working, they act like you are the bad guy, like you're the bad person, when it was their own scheduling that basically caused the whole issue, or not even going after the person who didn't show up to work. But yeah, I've had situations like that. I've had situations where I constantly covered for people, and then there was a day I couldn't cover, and I had managers that basically freaked out on me, acting like I was the bad person. And if I needed a day off and I would tell them in advance, they would never give it to me. But then you'd have people that constantly would call out, and they never got punished for it. Next one is for menacing projects. Hi, professional. So the thing about this comment is that it won't be about me, but about my mother who worked. So my mother worked in the Department of Public Utility in South Carolina. She had a hard time working there due to the constant stress of being judged, looked down upon, and overall disrespected. The story I'm about to tell happened way back in either 2020 or 2021 when COVID was around. So when my mother caught COVID and was sick, her job called and trying to check on everything. The reality is that they didn't care and instead wanted her to come back in, but didn't say it directly. So they still trying to make my mother work despite being sick, can put others at risk of catching it. I never forgot, and seeing how much of a piece of shit the job was, I'm glad my mom left. Oh man, they probably they what they were probably trying to do is they were probably trying to guilt trip your mom into coming in. They weren't directly telling her to come in, but with their words that they were saying to her, for judging from what you said here, is that they were probably trying to guilt trip her. They were probably saying things like, oh, we're short staffed right now and stuff, without directly saying we need you to come in, stuff like that. And, somebody is sick, they have this new virus that at the time people don't really know much about. Your mom, they don't really know what your mom's full condition is. Your mom could get worse. Her illness could get worse. And yet they are trying to guilt trip your mom. And this is the thing, is my parents always told me your health is more important than your job. And it's really good that your mom left that job, because trying to make somebody come in when they're sick, that's just disgusting, and it was one of the most dishonorable things that you can do. Next one from SimbaFan 2024. So a few years ago, I tried to get a job at Wendy's. I went in, I did the paperwork correctly, and the manager said she would get back to me, and they never did get back to me. So I never tried getting a job again since. Well, what I'll tell you about this, Simba, is you shouldn't give up on looking for a job because you had a bad experience like that. My first job, when I applied to my first job, what basically happened is I went into this burger place. My friend was already working there as a cashier, and he basically recommended me. And I went in, I met with the manager, I did an interview with her, I dressed really nicely for that interview, and despite me even, dressing really nicely for the interview, answering all of her questions, she told me that I don't have any job experience, but she's willing to give me a chance, and she's still willing to look at my resume. And I told her, if you don't decide on hiring me, you're still gonna, call me and let me know that I didn't get the job, right? And she's like, oh yeah, I'll let you know whether you get the job or not. And guess what? Never called me back. And then what she did was she actually talked to my friend and said to him that, oh, do you have anybody who has, more experience? So from that moment in the interview, she knew she wasn't going to hire me, but she still wasted my time in an interview. She should have just told me then and there that you're not going to get the job. But that's basically what a lot of companies do, scummy things like that, is that they just don't get back to you. They act like they're gonna get back to you, but they don't. But don't give up, SimbaFan. Don't let this one idiot manager let this get to you. And I do think that managers have an obligation to get back to somebody, especially if they told them they're going to get back to them, even if they didn't get the job. Next one is from Brawl Skater. Had a terrible experience working at a hunting retail store after getting kicked out of the army in college. So basically, I was applying for the gun collector position, and to get my FFL and all that, which basically lets you sell firearms and ammo legally. Yeah, that's the federal firearms license. So that's the job I applied for. When it did the interview and got hired on the spot, managers seemed cool at first, but turned out to be completely opposite later down the line. Immediately, they had me start the next day, so I had a good feeling they liked my previous knowledge and experience of firearms, being in combat arms, MOS. So my first 2 weeks, they were going good. But out of nowhere, I was asked if I wanted to take an extra register position up front, as someone else they hired quit the first day. I felt bad and I said sure, as long as I can get extra hours, because with just the gun counter job alone, was only getting around 25 to 30 hours a week. Well, that same day, I got a text from one of the other employees overhearing the managers on the phone talking about getting rid of the new guy, and she told me about that. I wasn't tripping because I was just offered a position in the store. Um, hmm. Well, I'm going to tell you, that employee who told you is a good friend, that they told you stuff like that. A lot of employees would not tell other employees that. So that coworker who told you they were talking behind your back, they're a good person. Um, uh, well, it turns I wasn't tripping because I was just offered another position in the store, so it can't be me, right? Well, it turns out 1 month goes by. I still never had my hours increased. And actually, they cut my hours from the gun collector position to train on register. And having to train two jobs at once, and within that month, they hired a new register gun and guy counter guy. Next day after they hired a register dude, which I both helped them with the applications and helped talk to the managers to help people get hired. Unfortunately, not knowing that I was literally replacing myself. And the next day fired me mid-shift my checks ready with no explanation on what my performance was lacking or anything. I was completely speechless. I got to the point where I was asking them why wasn't any problem brought to me before I was making any. I'm very honest to own up to any mistakes and genuinely felt backstabbed. Anyhow, end of the story, and they said it's just not working out. Sorry. Ugh. And I will say that if managers ever ask you to, cover for somebody or work for somebody, don't do it. Because most of the time what people think is oh, I'm going to get more hours. But whenever I was asked to cover for somebody, they would just basically cut the rest of my hours in the week just so that I wouldn't get overtime. That was basically the whole reason that they did that. So they would have, when they needed emergencies, they would ask me to come in, but I wasn't actually working more, and all I basically had was my schedule was disrupted. My days off were disrupted. But that sucks. Is that they probably just had some kind of problem with you. They didn't like you. You probably didn't even do anything wrong. It was probably they just didn't like you. Is that some managers are just scumbags. They just don't like your personality. I had supervisors like that where I didn't do anything wrong, but they just didn't like me. And that's probably what happened, is that they probably had friends that they hired, people that they liked, those other, people. They probably knew them personally, and they were basically trying to force you out and get rid of you. And that's what happened. But I wouldn't worry, about that, dude. It sucks that they threw you out of the job and that they didn't give you an explanation, but you don't need to work in a toxic environment like that. But I'm sure that there are a lot of other firearm stores and a lot of other gun stores that would be willing to hire you, especially with the knowledge that you have about firearms. There's a lot of stores out there, so don't give up. Always keep trying. And next one is from Lumi the Goat 209. One time when I was working at Family Dollar, my former assistant manager was in the bathroom on his phone and left me alone on the register. It was very scary, let me tell you. But lucky the guy was fired. But I'm glad I work in a better environment where we all look out for each other. Oh man. And I like I was saying earlier, is that you have these situations where the manager will basically just leave you. I've had situations where I was the only one up at the register. There was one time where the company was getting so greedy with cutting their hours. And what my manager did was he put me and this extremely lazy supervisor that basically never did anything and would just sit up in the office on, it was like a 7 or 8 hour shift. And what happened was I had this huge line, built up. And I would constantly call him for backup. And he would just say to me, oh, I can't, I'm doing some paperwork in the office. And I basically had like a line of 20 people. And I had to open two registers. And I was one register and the other register running back and forth, scanning one. And I would hit the credit card button, let the thing process. And as that was processing, I would start ringing up the other customer, then run back, give them the receipt as that receipt came out. And then I was actually later yelled at by my manager telling me, you can't do that. You can't run two registers at once. Well, if I can't run two registers at once, then get somebody down there to help me. But that really sucks that they leave you there alone. They expect you to basically be able to do everything on your own, and then they don't come and help you out. Oh man. And I will also, when you said it's also very scary, you probably were working the night shift, weren't you? You probably were. And I will tell you, when you're working a night shift and you are the only person to register, it does get scary. I've had in my store in December time was actually open during the holidays time, actually open later, and I did work sometimes nights on the register. And I will tell you that working around that time, especially when everything else in the shopping plaza is closed and we're the only store that's open, and when a single car pulls up and the person's coming in the store, that makes you nervous. Thankfully, nothing ever bad happened to me, but it does scare you when stuff like that is happening. Next one is from Asmodus, 1K36. I used to work at a Pizza Hut in Florida. I was on delivery during the delivery. I got run off the road, beat up, and threatened with a gun and robbed. Oh my God. After the incident, I called my boss to tell her what happened. She asked, "Is the pizza okay?" What? I told her, no, I'm going to the hospital. She told me I couldn't do that. I had to come back and first to clock out. I told her, no, I can't do that. I'm in pain and bleeding. She said, if you don't clock out first, you're fired. I hung up, went in the next 2 days, and after getting out of the hospital, crutches. She said I was fired. I told her I could have died, and she said, I don't care, you disobeyed an order. Oh my God. And there's an update to this story. Blinded Eagle replied to him and said that has to be illegal because there's no way. If this happened as of somewhat recent, you should sue the living hell out of that store. Whether or not Florida is an at-will state, they should know the law. And as Modus said, it's not illegal in states that have to be where they can fire without a cause. Yes, it happened to me. It wasn't recent that it happened. It happened in 2019. Now, what I'll say about this is your manager is a psychopath. That is basically what a psychopath is. A psychopath is somebody who has no empathy for others, does not have any feelings at all for others, doesn't care for others. That very much sounds psychopathic behavior to me. But here's what I'll tell you, and this is what people don't know, is that in a lot of companies, not even just companies, in just jobs in general, is that in the vast majority of states in America, employers can just fire you for any reason. However, though, what they cannot do is they cannot retaliate against you. And what retaliation is when you do something that they don't like. So, for example, let's say that you report unsafe working conditions, right? And then they fire you. Or you report an employee harassing you, and then they fire you. That is a form of retaliation. And so this, I am not a lawyer, so I don't know 100%. This actually might classify as retaliation. In Florida, you could have possibly even taken them to court for that. Because while they can fire you, for any reason, they cannot, I'm pretty sure they can't do something like this. If you get injured on the job, even if you are a pizza, pizza driver, if you get injured on the job, technically you can apply for workman's compensation because you got injured on the job. And also, these companies, what they can do is they can if it's especially if it's an electronic system, they can punch you out on their own. So the manager can actually punch you out and change your hours. So even if there when I used to work in retail, there were situations where employees forgot to punch out, and then they would be like, it would say that they were working all night when they weren't, and then the manager would just fix it in the morning. It wasn't that big of a deal. So that's what your manager could do, is that she could have just punched you out manually. You don't actually have to go back to the store and punch out. And the fact that she's carrying out the pizza and stuff like that. So when you told her, especially if you had text messages of that, texting her that, I got beat up, I got robbed, I gotta go to the hospital, and she's saying to you that you gotta no, you gotta come back and you gotta clock out, and you say, no, I'm going to the hospital, I'm hurt, and then she fires you, you could very much argue that is retaliation. She's retaliating against you. You told her that you're injured, and she doesn't care, and she fired you for that. So that, like I said, I'm not a complete lawyer. If anybody knows more about law in the comments, you could tell me if this classifies as retaliation. But this very much might classify as retaliation. But this happened to you. You said it was in 2019, so you probably can't do anything now. But maybe at the time you could have done something. But I feel so bad for you, as Modus, if I'm reading your name correctly, and that is that's just disgusting. I don't know why some people can't have empathy for others. You could have died, and she doesn't care. All she basically cares about is the pizza deliveries and you clocking out. Disgusting. Next one is from Javi Gamer World. Not my story, but when my dad was in the U.S. in 2000, he worked at the store called Johnny Lunch and Dinner. So anyway, this man, who probably in his late 30s, ordered a rice and chicken with a water. And when my dad gave his order, he said he didn't want it anymore. So my dad tells him then what he wants, and the guy said nothing and tried to leave. My dad stopped the guy, and the guy punches my dad in his face and then calls him a bitch, and then Johnny, my dad boss, comes, stops the guy, tells the cops, and then the guys get arrested. And then my dad went home and this happened in New York, by the way. So my dad, being 23, didn't know what to do, and then the next day he had a better day. Um, so what I'll say about this is that I don't know what the charge is for that. But if you place an order for food and your food is made, it's not like the food can be unmade at that point. So when a restaurant basically makes food and somebody orders the food, and then afterwards they basically say, "Oh, I'm not paying for it," and the food's already made, is that could be classified as a form of theft because you basically just wasted resources from that restaurant. Uh, but your dad tried to stop the guy and the guy punches oh yeah, that is pretty much assault and battery at that point. That's assault and battery. And what I'll say about these situations is I'm glad that your dad is okay, but it isn't worth trying to stop these people. It's not worth it. Some people are just idiots, and they do, customers do stupid things. I had a customer that was shoplifting in an aisle in my retail store, and my supervisor, she confronted him, and he pushed her into an end cap. She had to go to the hospital. She ended up being okay, and she made a full recovery. But that's basically that. Is that it's best not to get involved in these situations. But it's good that and you said that, and then Johnny, my dad boss, comes and stops the guy, and then okay, yeah, so it was good. According to the story, your dad's boss helped stop the person. So it was good that your boss had your dad's back and he helped out in this situation in the end. A lot of bosses aren't like that, unfortunately. Next one is from the unsub. I've got lots of stories, bro. So many so that it could fill up the Chrysler building and not keep them straight at the same time. I'd love to talk to you about it all someday, but that seems unlikely. As someone that currently works retail, I can say with confidence in hell, I would never recommend a cashier gig. Yep, and what I'll say about this is there's a big misunderstatement about cashiers. People think that being a cashier is an easy job. I would not say that being a cashier is an easy job because the amount of people that are constantly coming in, and also the complaints that you have. And the worst thing is when you have a customer that's complaining to you, you don't know how to handle the situation, and then you can't make the move, and they're basically just holding up the line. They refuse to, move for the next person, and they basically just stall the entire process. That is just extremely frustrating when you have stuff like that. Like, I hate when people do that, when people, just cause a scene at the register, and then a line starts building up. Next one is from the Made Man. I used to work in a movie theater in 2019. And it was a kind of fun work experience for a job for the most part. Most of the time, I'd be an usher, which is cleaning theaters after a movie's over. And my favorite part about that was I didn't have to deal with much customers. And there were other times I had to be at a concession stand, which was my least favorite position at Cinemark, the movie theater. Because obviously customers... but also we had the rewards points people could sign up for, and also there are some things you have to know how to do when working in concession. That was only explained by the supervisors like once, and I'm one of those people where you'd have to explain to me how to do something a few times, and I just didn't want to ask every time I was in concession because, like most places, coworkers and a supervisor will treat you like a dumbass if you don't know how to do a certain thing. But eventually I got kind of the hang of some stuff, but later on down the road, I found another job and put in my 2 weeks notice, and I quit and was on good terms with them. Sometimes when I go there to watch a movie, I do see a few people at Cinemark who still work there to this day. Like I was saying earlier also, is that it's these managers that basically expect you to figure out how to do everything on your own and within the first day. I had managers that would scream at me when I called up managers, for help or how to teach me stuff, or if I needed help with a specific customer, I had managers yell at me and treat me like crap, and it was to the point where I was basically just scared of calling up a manager or a supervisor. But it's good you got out of there, and also you did leave with 2 week notice, and you did leave off on good terms with them though. So I guess there's that. You could always use that as a reference also for another job. Next one's from Diffie. I worked at a bulk barn in Canada. It's a bulk food store. An old woman asked me if there was yeast infection cream for sale. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's a bulk food store, and she's asking if there's yeast infection cream for sale. We have a pharmacy department in my retail store where I worked, and we had a few medicine aisles that were actually in front of the pharmacy. And I would have customers that would actually come up to me with their prescriptions and ask me for help and advice on how to take their medication. And I would tell them I'm not a pharmacist. I don't know. I don't want to give you the wrong information. I had one customer tell me there's a pharmacy in your store. You work in the same store and you don't know anything about medicine. What kind of idiot are you? That's what I had one customer tell me. But oh man, yeah, people will ask for really dumb things. Next one is from Kevin A. I was so good at being a cashier. They invited me to a cashier bagger contest, no raise or nothing, but it was interesting. Unfortunately, the other store's cashiers and baggers were too good, so I didn't win. Was there some kind of prize or reward for it? But if there was some kind of prize or reward, then I would enter it. But if there isn't, there really isn't a point to that. It's kind of ridiculous how when companies make their employees participate in those things, like you see those videos of like workers dancing in Walmart, and apparently that was like a thing that they were you know basically kind of forcing their workers to do, basically heavily pressuring them to do. Uh, but a cashier in a bagger contest. But I wonder how they even determine that, because the thing is, sometimes how fast a cashier goes depends on the customer. So if you have a really slow customer, you're going to be also going really slow. So I don't know how that would. Maybe a bagging contest would take more skill, but also some customers are going to have more stuff, others are going to have less on certain registers. So I don't know how that would work exactly. Next one is from Wyatt's Y version 8603. Enjoyed the Mafia, the Old Country, and two streams. One time when I worked at a convenience store, me and my associate were just chilling. It was probably 3 a.m. or so, and a guy comes in clearly drunk. There was a bar behind the store. We knew and despised a lot of the regulars. Oh boy, yeah, people probably coming in and causing problems. And says his wife is trying to run him over. What? He then goes back outside, idiot, and we follow, and lo and behold, his wife is waiting in the Impala in the parking lot and proceeds to drunkenly try and run him over. So he comes into the store. Oh man, he comes into the store drunk, and he basically says that his wife is trying to run him over. And what does he do? He goes back outside where his wife is trying to run him over. And what ended up happening? And proceeds to drunkenly try and run him over, which eventually bled into the street. Oh my god. She couldn't quite pull it off, though, because he was too quick, and also she was all too drunk. And hilarity did ensue. Needless to say, she was arrested, and he was also arrested for some sort of warrants. We saw him again a few days later and asked if it was him. We weren't sure, to which he responded, "Yeah, that's me." Oh man. Well, I hope that marriage ended in divorce. And this one is from Blinded Eagle, and Blinded Eagle has a few stories. Ah, shit, here we go again. Pun is very much intended. To be honest, I have no idea where to start, so I'm just going to start with easily the best of them all. The swivel chair story. If you guys remember that night when Pat was streaming Reddit Online, or I've told you in the party, you're going to remember this. So basically, one Friday night, it was pretty busy as usual, although it started to die down a little bit. During that time, there was this one order of what sounded like an average age dude, and he just said he wanted to get a large Baja Blast. That's it. But before he left, I overheard him say, "Yo, there's a swivel chair on the side of the lot here." Me taking a second to process that, I'm like, what did he just say? And guess what? There was a pickup truck that was passing the window, and I was so confused. But it turns out there was this absolute smoke show girl on the back of it recording the whole thing, by the way. At least that's what I have to assume. And she was holding a rope out into the open in the drive-thru, and this dude pulls up in the exact same swivel chair. It all makes sense now. Before I could even take his card, I was just laughing way too bad, and I'm like, bro, I can't. And my boss looks at me, and she's like, what is it? And I point at a window, and then once all my coworkers caught on, we were just absolutely laughing. Technically, at least, I don't think it was illegal, but either way, it was just too funny. And we just still gave him his drink. But to this day, it's still my favorite story to tell. Bar none. The stereotype of just crazy shit happening at Taco Bell. At Taco Bell's the timing, the fact that it was just some college kids. Again, I'm assuming because I don't know. It was just way too funny. They ended up coming in for like 10 minutes and sat in the lobby and left. But I even brought it up again a few months ago. And when my boss was around, and she told me it was so unbelievable. When she told one of her friends, they literally didn't believe her, like it was some urban myth. Even when I brought it up on Gilly Stream, he was just laughing because of how funny it was. It was also it was, but also it just fell out of the ordinary, I guess. I have a link here to timestamp so you can react to it too, because to be honest, it was pretty funny. And this is apparently from Gilly Master's stream, yeah, and he gave me the timestamp of when he reacted to it.
Alright, I'm disbanding. I sold mine. Now, if anyone else has anything left to sell, I'm open for business. Average Taco Bell experience, there was a smoke show chick on the back of a truck holding a rope out, and I see a guy on a swivel chair. What?
So they found a swivel chair, and then there was a girl in the back of the pickup truck, and then they tied the swivel chair to the truck and drove with it through the drive-through. Well, I will say though that is illegal though, tying the chair to the car, but they only probably did it in the drive-through. And they were probably making a YouTube video, or they were probably posting on social media. That's what the whole thing was probably about. And Blinded Eagle is another story. Now on to the next one, but I'm going to try to summarize as much as possible of how I actually got my job. Although, spoiler alert, obviously it didn't happen. I remember it was like late July of 2023. Bored out of my mind and wasn't in the best spot, and I had turned in an application to Dairy Queen and got some onion rings, and my mom was like, let's just go to Taco Bell. Me feeling like a fat ass, but also wanting a job, I decided to go. And before the stupid kiosk policy existed, there was clearly this older guy that ended up taking my order. But it turned out that was actually the GM at the time. So as we were talking, I basically asked him if I could come work there, and he was like, hell yeah, and he literally even offered to put my order in his tab at the time, though that didn't happen because my mom insisted on paying, and at the time, this guy literally confused my mom for being my sister, which was actually hilarious. The thought of doing something like that was something I had somewhat experienced one other time. That's just stuff you don't see every day. And basically, a week later, we set up an interview, and at that point, I had gotten hired. Unfortunately, on my first day, when he told me to come in, it was basically an accident because he wasn't there. But the first person I had met, I believe, was like the main shift lead at the time. Rest in peace. Oh, he passed away. I'm sorry. And he basically helped introduce me to everyone that was on the shift at the time. And basically everyone that was there left, or they worked at other locations. Obviously a few weeks, a month in, I had been working with my boss for a bit at the time, and he even told me working that day was an accident because I had a meeting. But he's generally a good guy. Words really aren't enough, as some people say. A lot I've said about him before, so I won't really repeat myself. If you saw the last reaction video, then you know. But fast forward 2 years and 2 months later, and we still talk on the regular. He even came to my store a few months ago for a week, and it just felt like the old days again. He even gave me a ride home when we would both get off, so my parents don't have to worry about staying up just for me. Even for my graduation party, when he was done working, he came to my house, and when I was supposed to graduate, he couldn't make it to see me walk the stage, but he just told me to walk the stage of pride and make everyone I know proud. I remember right after I sat, when I got my diploma cover, I sent him a message and I said I kept my promise. Of course, given that he was proud of me, he said, yeah, Dre, in the tone of having enthusiasm and excitement. And he said, words alone can't express how proud I am of you. Thanks for giving me credit, but I just supported you. You made this happen, and you really did this to one of your own. Keep being great, and just don't stop until the world you dream of is in your hands. God has big plans for you, and we all know it. And I was thinking in my head, nah, I can't cry yet, for real. Even when he couldn't make it to see me walk, we made a deal that he would take me out for lunch literally anywhere that I wanted to make up for it. Even though he still came to my graduation party, even if it was Chicago or something. Granted, at the time I wrote this, which was when you first made this original post announcing this video. We haven't gotten around to doing it, but hopefully we will soon. Even after that, sometime he'll come to our store and help us out, or just get some supplies, stuff like that. But still, I still look up to him in a way that makes it feel different than the way that I'll look up to other people that aren't necessarily in my family. All because I was a 16-year-old kid that wanted to get some food. This is one of those things I wouldn't forget. And that's an awesome story. And you found probably the most chill and nicest manager on the planet. And I'm really happy for you, Blinded Eagle, that you got the chance to work with that guy. And he also inspired you, and inspired you to work hard and to be proud of your accomplishments. I wish that all managers I wish that all managers, whether they are in, fast food, retail, or any other place, I wish that all managers were like that guy. And I'll write story 3 from Blinding Eagle, but not too big. But basically, there was one time, like 2 months ago, where my boss was on a video call. So her brother, who was also working for us at the time, but he was mainly an AGM, I think that's assistant general manager at another location, filled in for us as Mike for a bit. However, the thing about him I always liked was that he was strict and would get on your case when you slacked, but it was like half of just being a manager and having that "what are you doing" attitude. But I liked him. He kind of reminds me of that one good supervisor you would talk about. Anyway, everything was going cool. One of my other coworkers, who was also manager, asked me about this particular order, and turns out it was some idiots I went to school with, because they basically made their order named after certain stuff that they didn't know. Pisses me off, but they were still trying to get me to say it. Obviously, I didn't give in, but at least they only ordered a dragon fruit freeze. And once I gave it to them, I said, what you're doing ain't gonna work, so get the F out of here. Obviously, without context, it came off as rude, but I explained what happened, and it turns out, apparently, when my coworker was hitting their vape outside, these kids were apparently trying to hit on her and ask for her vape. Well, F around and find out, they say. So my mic goes out, and for a solid 5 to 10 minutes, and I don't know exactly what he said, but he probably threatened to get them trespass at the property if they kept bothering us. Thankfully, in basically 2 years of working at that point in time, that was the first time I had a situation like that occur. But hopefully never again. And this is what I will I'll say is, this reminds me of my supervisor, which you actually talked about here. I had a supervisor that was really strict, and about her is, when you first start working with her, you don't like her, but then you like her over time, because you realize that even though she's strict, it doesn't mean that she's heartless. Is that when, if you aren't doing your job, yes, she'll get on your case, but if you are doing your job, she'll have your back all the time. And it seems like this guy was also that type of guy, but it's good that he intervened and he told these, dumb kids to get out there. They shouldn't be harassing anyone like that. But a lot of, people, they come into these fast food places and these retail places, and they think they can just talk down to people and treat people like crap. My supervisor, about her, there was a time when the pharmacy department wanted me to clean up vomit that a customer had vomited in the front, and the pharmacy department was usually really rude to me, and I told my strict supervisor they wanted me to clean up vomit, and I refused, and she said, "They wanted you to do what?" And she went back there, and oh boy, she, screamed and cursed at them, and she did it on my behalf. So strict doesn't always mean heartless. You can have strict supervisors that are great people. They would just get on your case if you're not doing your job, but when you actually need them, they are there, and that's what's great about those supervisors. And this from Blind Eagle. And anyways, probably the last story, since I don't want to stretch the living shit out of this video. Sorry, by the way. But basically, about a month and a half ago, it was just another day at work, and one of my coworkers was taking orders, and another was on the line of me making food. There was this old head at the speaker that said she just wanted, I think, 1 or 2 soft tacos with just a beef and the tortilla. It's not too uncommon, but it happens. My coworker, however, misheard this and repeated the order wrong, and holy actual F, this old head was literally screaming at the speaker. I'm not even joking. It was like Michael Myers was chasing you or something. She was literally screaming about absolutely bloody murder all over, mishearing, that's what the drive-thru is for. Things happen. I get it, but still, goddamn. Literally, we were also flabbergasted, and at one point, I was just standing there when my assistant general manager called me, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I couldn't even explain it without mumbling in shock. And he was like, "Yeah, you're not doing anything. Get over here." Not in like a rude way or anything, though, but I just ended up doing a trash run. But my God, every time I hear an old head, I almost get so nervous that I'm going to get yelled at, unless it ends up just being one of the regulars. And I recognize them because we do have a lot of those, and they are really chill. Okay, so it's good that that you never saw that you never saw that customer again. But the thing about generally old people is old people generally are actually some of the nicest customers that you will encounter in retail and in the food industry. But occasionally, yes, you will have old people that can be really rude like that and really nasty like that. And if I had customers that were really rude and nasty to me, especially my last month of working, I would basically just say to them, "Sir, ma'am, I'm trying my best to help you. And if you, don't stop being rude to me, I'm not going to help you." If they apologize, I would help them. If they didn't, I would just walk away. And when you walk away, it's like magic to them because they are just so shocked that you walked away. But in this type of case, you can't really do something like that because you're in a drive-thru. And the worst part is when you have a stupid customer in the drive-thru, and they're basically just holding up the drive-thru, and then there's a giant buildup of cars, and it stretches out into the street. That's the worst when that happens. And next one is from Soda Pup83. Thank you for the comment. When I was 19 years old and all the grocery stores were still open during the pandemic, I was in the position of a courtesy, basically someone who bags groceries and walks customers out to help them pack. Of course, this leads into weird encounters. The one I hated the most was this older lady whose cart had a repugnant odor that reeked of cat urine. Ugh. It turns out the reusable bag for her groceries also seemed to be a makeshift litter box, as there were pebbles of litter and possibly cat feces scattered inside it. As someone who had been working there for longer than the other courtesies, and with my own task to stock product before closing time, I had one of the newer employees take it out. Regardless, it should be illegal for customers to bring that kind of biohazard into a store. Ugh. Oh man. Oh. Oh man. There was Ooh, that's disgusting. Uh, two disgusting situations that happened to me in retail. Well, one didn't really happen to me. One happened to my coworker, but a customer actually once pooped in the aisle. Yeah, they did that. I don't know, what's wrong with some people. And then another situation was there was a customer who would basically eat open a chocolate bar, eat half of it, and just shove it randomly in the in aisles in the store. And I found dozens of these chocolate bars. That's disgusting. Oh my god. And your manager needs to kick people like that out of the store because and you probably don't work there anymore because you say when you were 19, but the manager needs to kick people like that out of the store because they could get other people sick, especially bringing in stuff like that to the store. But I'm sorry you went through that. Next one is from Fuzzroff. Here's a crazy story for you. So I worked for my friend's restaurant a while, and we had a new learner on the field as waitress. She takes order of coffee, and I had to deliver. It was also very busy that day. Restaurant have 72 tables at full, so we were under pressure. Anyway, she filled on the tablet. She wanted a coffee espresso, but the kitchen made a coffee cappuccino, so I delivered it, and she got mad and threw hot coffee on me when I got first-degree burn wounds. Oh my god! I was innocent, so I didn't complain at the police, but she dragged out the police and is banned for life and employees for employee harassment and public endangerment. Sorry if my English isn't good. Hope you didn't get a stroke. Love you. Oh my god. I did not expect the story to go that way. She threw coffee on you. Oh my god, that is assault, and you could pretty much argue that that's battery at that point too, because she really hurt you. Oh my god, but yeah, she got dragged out by the police. Yeah, so she got arrested, and you could possibly even sue her for that. But oh my god, I am so sorry, dude. In all my time in retail, I've never actually been assaulted by a customer. I've been threatened by a customer, but I've never been assaulted by a customer. But oh my god, that is that's just absolutely horrible. I'm sorry that you went through that. Next one is from Vertigo. During COVID, I used to work at FedEx ground as a package handler. I had massive problems with management there, but the story is far the worst. August 2020, my supervisor informed that I was allowed to go home at 9 p.m. since it was a Thursday before the weekend. A few hours later, a different supervisor takes over and yells at everyone, including myself, that we were incompetent and had to stay extra. The reason everyone was waylaid was because at times the supervisors would frequently stop the conveyor belt for a cooldown period. Therefore, I had remained idle until they started up, 20 minutes at most. Not to mention, I wasn't allowed to take a break and would work 7 to 9 hours straight. As a result, I ended up staying until 11:30. That experience really pissed me off. Another annoying thing with FedEx ground is that I would have to call the FedEx office to ask when the shift starts time would start. And by the time I arrived at work, they would tell everyone that the shift will start 3 to 5 hours later. Oh my god. I have other related stories from FedEx ground management, but that'll have to wait for another time. Oh my god. And I will also say they cannot prevent you from taking a break. They can't. They could tell you a specific time frame, so they could say, you have to take the break within, after 4 hours of working on this time or something like that. But they cannot deny you the break. They can't do that. And that's that is pretty much illegal. I don't know I'm assuming you live in the United States, but I would look into your state laws because I am pretty sure that they broke laws. They cannot do stuff like that. And what managers will do basically to try to get around this, to try to get around breaking these laws, is they'll try to guilt trip you. They will oftentimes say stuff like, oh, oh, you can't go on break right now. If you go on break, we're going to be behind. We have a lot of work to do. We need you right now. They'll basically guilt trip you. And then you will finally say, okay, I'm not going to go on break. And at that point, they could argue, oh, it was your own choice. You didn't go on break. But it's really scummy. And the managers at the same time, they claim that they don't go on break, but they just sit in the office a lot of times. And they get to sit while other people have to stand and be constantly on the move. And also wasting your time like that. Yeah, wasting your time like that, telling you when telling you the wrong times when the shift is going to start. They have an obligation as an employer to tell you when the shift is going to start. I had a manager that used to mess up my schedule all the time, and that manager would say to me that it's my responsibility to find out. So the night before, he would change the schedule, and then he'd call me in the morning and just say, where are you? And then he would tell me it's my responsibility. So every night I had to call the store and ask if the schedule had changed. That's what's just such BS. It was just so annoying. Next one is from Diffie. I used to work as a dishwasher in the restaurant. The owner will be drinking beer and getting drunk while on site. I also had their chef try and get me to try cocaine. What? It was a very horrible job experience. I was also very distressed. What? You were okay. I'm sorry about what you went through there, Diffie, and I'm sorry that put you in that state. I hope that you're better now. But they try to get you to try cocaine. What the f? Bad enough the owner is drunk while on work, but the chef, the guy who tries to get you to prepare food, tries to get you to try cocaine. Oh my god. I hope that you're okay. I hope that you're in a good mental state right now, and I hope everything's okay with you, dude. Well, I really hope that you also reported that place. But oh man, I have no words for that. What the hell? Next one from Sheep Taco Man. I have one for my days as a manager of a McDonald's and a customer trying to extort me for free food. I am helping out at the drive-thru, and this car pulls up. I get them their order, and they start asking for things. First, they wanted extra napkins, then they wanted extra ketchup, then they wanted a cup of water. Drive-thru timers are very important to your valuation. Yeah, because if you don't, a lot of cars are going to pile up. So despite this car wasting time, I was still polite to them and got them everything they asked for. But when I gave them their cup of water, hoping they finally pulled away, the driver says to me, "Get me free food or else I won't move." What? I was like, excuse me? No way this guy is trying to con me for free food. When I told him no, he told me he wasn't leaving. I closed the window on him and started serving everyone at the cashier window. I told him after a couple of minutes that if he didn't move, I was calling the cops on him. Just so happens, after a couple of minutes, a car pulls up at McDonald's, and the guy finally pulls away. Well, it's good he left, but I was really hoping the guy would get arrested. But that sucks. That really does. That's a scam. That is pretty much a scam. And I've encountered customers that try to pull scams, but oftentimes it's a return scam. But something like that they're basically threatening to hold up the whole line unless you give them free food. Disgusting. That is just no. That's. But I appreciate you, Fernando. Fernando is my moderator here, but I appreciate you, you standing your ground and telling the customer no. And I think that's the exact same situation I would have handled it. I would have just basically shut the window on them. But I know a lot of managers would have just given them the free food just so that the line keeps moving. But if you let one person do this, they see that, and then more people are going to do it, and then more people are going to do it. You got to take a stand and say no. Next one is from Cowkip. Mine isn't nearly as bad as some of the others you shared, but I figured I'd tell mine since it's more lighthearted in a way. My first job was at a Food Lion when I was 15. We sold alcohol at our store, but it had to be kept locked up because we had issues with teenagers stealing it. I mention this because on my first day of work after training, a lady got an attitude with me. For some reason, she couldn't understand that they wouldn't give the 15-year-old employee a key to access the alcohol. I tried pointing her to an adult coworker or my manager, but she kept asking, why can't you do it? This went on for about 10 minutes before she eventually called me useless and walked off. Stupid. Some really stupid customers. It reminds me of the customers that would ask me for help with their prescriptions when I'm not the pharmacist. But if she cannot realize, why a 15-year-old cannot have the key to the alcohol, may God help her. Thankfully, I only worked there for the summer and was mainly in the dairy section, so that's the only story I really have, since most of the time was spent in the dairy fridge stocking milk. But I won't lie, that already made me question my choice in working there. Edit, I also remembered that the training was practically useless. It was mostly a 4-hour-long session where you watch videos and answer questions like, how do you respond when a customer wants to return something? help them with the return, or B, tell them to jump off a bridge. Thankfully, I was only stocking dairy ice cream, so it was easy to pick up on. But they really didn't prepare me at all for anything. And again, like I said, is we have another person. We have another person basically saying the same thing, that these 4 hour long sessions that they ask you, that they make you take. And my class is 5 hours, but these classes that they make you take, they teach you nothing about the job. The only thing they teach you is about customer service. That's basically it. Just customer service and being nice to customers. You would think that in these classes, if they're going to make you spend 5 hours in a class, that they would actually teach you skills that you're going to need in the store, like how to use the register, how to stock things, how to read, labels, stuff like that. But they don't. Instead, they just focus on just the customer service. And it's obvious you have to be nice to the customer, but they act like you have no common sense when you're in these classes. Next one is from Lowfin. From the totally beautiful state of West Virginia, I had an insane retail story in the morning where this drunk customer walked out with two 40-ounce beers, and the person on fast lane wasn't paying attention. My coworker who was on the register saw this and chased him down. He was stumbling around to his car until he placed the beer inside the car. My coworker took it out of his car immediately as he put it inside, since he was stumbling around outside and completely lost in his mind. Until he noticed the beer was gone, he started fast, walking into the store, screaming and demanding where his beer was and creating a scene. He was screaming at the coworker who took it out of his car and the guy who was on fast lane. His speech was slurred the whole time along with his hillbilly accent, so no one could understand him. Eventually, it got so bad that everyone who was working was forming a circle, watching him have a mental breakdown, just for the manager to ask the fast lane worker if he had a receipt, and he said no. The guy, during his hissy fit, went to get some soda instead from the vending machine and put it down on the fast lane table while continuously berating the fast lane worker and the manager. Eventually, my manager had enough and asked if the soda was his, with him responding yes. She tosses it on the floor and screams, "Get the F out," having enough of this guy causing a scene. I got to witness the whole thing, and thankfully, she never gotten in any trouble for doing it, considering how vital she is to how the store runs, and that is usually takes a lot to get her on her bad side, which I've never seen before. And yeah, even nice people have their limits, but when you push a nice person to their limits, how they are gonna freak out. They're gonna freak out on you. Yeah. So he walked out. He walked out with the two beers, and he wasn't paying attention. Oh my god! And he tried to put it in his car. He was gonna drive drunk, and so you guys probably prevented an accident there. And it's good you throw this person out, but I will tell you, here's the thing is, guys, we might find stuff like this funny, but drunk customers are actually some of the scariest customers that you can have, and also high customers, because they're in an unstable state of mind, and you don't know what they're gonna do, and you cannot reason with them. And when somebody is intoxicated, when somebody is high, you cannot reason with them, and so they're gonna be in a very unstable state of mind. So while some of us might find this funny, it's scary dealing with these people because you don't know exactly what's gonna happen. But I'm sorry you went through that, low, Finn. Next one is from Shadow Snake, 8989. Oh boy, where do I start? And which one? Well, I worked as a cashier at CVS for 2 years, most stressful in my life, and there are a lot of crazy things, but I'll keep it down to 3 that stick out. The first was when we were rotating out sales. Now, CVS at the time had kiosks that would print out weekly coupons depending on the sale. Every Saturday evening, these sales would be removed from the system for new ones, and the old sales tags pulled. A woman comes in to buy some products that were on the previous sale and demanded that I give her them for the previous sale price, which I myself couldn't do since they were removed from the system. I explained that to her, and she became irate, the nice way to put it, and called me something that I won't repeat here. At that point, I had it, and I lost my temper. My manager showed up and told me to go back to the back room, and I did, to which the woman called me more things I can't say, and I had never wanted to do something that would end with me being in jail so bad. I stayed in the back, and pretty sure I got a write-up, and my manager not only gave her the items for the sale price, but I'm pretty sure she also gave her more discounts as well. Oh my god. Yeah, and I will tell you is that in my store when I worked in retail, we had similar things where when the weekly sale changed that night, what would happen is we would basically put up new signs, and that would be customers would basically be complaining. They would basically be complaining, "Oh, where's the old sale? I saw the sign a couple minutes ago, but it's taken down now." And people will basically complain about anything, to get any kind of discount. I even had a customer once who he took the one of the buy one get one free signs. There was a buy one get one free sign, and he took it from the vitamin section specifically. And what he did was he had brought it and he put it actually he brought it into where the toothpaste and the tooth aisle was, and he put it on those Crest white strips. Those things that are like $70 a box, and he basically said it's buy one get one free when it wasn't. That's not what it was. And when my supervisor was like asking me, like, did you put this on? I'm like, no, I didn't. And the supervisor still gave the customer that discount. I don't know why they gave them that discount. We basically got scammed. They got a free a Crest white strip. But it was obvious to me that this person was a scammer. It was obvious to me that they had put the sign up. I didn't see them put that sign up there, but I know for a fact I didn't put it there. And so there's no doubt in my mind that this person was a scammer. Then there was the customer who came in with and I will also say that it is disgusting that a lot of times these managers will take the sides of these people. They'll take the sides of these people that are basically causing, a scene. And I will say, when you have a manager that will not take your side, when you have a rude customer, you have a nasty customer, and you have a manager that will not take your side, that is not the type of environment that you want to work in. That's not you do not want to work in that type of environment. Then there was this customer who came in with an empty 2-liter Pepsi and said that it made his stomach hurt, so he wanted a refund with no receipt. In my mind, I thought, you sat there, drank some, it made your stomach hurt, so you decided to just down the whole bottle. Similar to me, where customers would return cookies with 90% of them eaten and then say it was bad. So, suffice it to say, without a receipt and it not being a store brand item, there wasn't anything I could do, and told him as much. He left, and the next day, my other manager, I had 3, took me aside and said the customer called corporate, and they folded and forced the store to give him a refund and a 24-pack of Pepsi. Suffice to say, I realized how much people will game a system to get their way. You see, this is why corporate America is losing so much money, because of stupid crap like this. That guy was a scammer, and I don't understand why these companies will go out of their way to give scammers their refunds, because they're just going to keep doing it. It's a net loss from these people. The scammer might buy some items here and there, but it's ultimately a net loss. You are going to lose more money dealing with these people than you're going to be... Oh man, my God! I don't know why they can't just deny these people and ban these people from the store. Some people need to be told no. Some people really need to be told no. Oh man, and I will say like that. Remember when I talked about that the guy with the chocolate bars? He would eat half the chocolate bar and he would basically just shove it in the shelf somewhere in the aisles, and I had to clean up dozens of them. My manager once caught the guy and confronted him and told him that he's being banned from the store. Now, what ended up happening was a couple weeks later, that guy actually came into the store. And I told the manager, we have to call the police. The guy's here. And the manager's like, nah, don't do it. And I'm like, why? And he's like, well, he's still a customer and we don't want him to call corporate. He's a customer. The guy comes in and he just basically eats like, half a chocolate bar and then just doesn't pay for it and just shoves it in the shelves. It's disgusting. And then I have to throw that out. But that was basically what my manager was so scared of him calling corporate. But thankfully, at least the guy didn't do it anymore. At least he knew he was being watched, so we never had him do that anymore. But he still should have been banned from the store. But that's just ridiculous. The good manager I had was an older woman who did not bow down to the customer's demands and would defend the employees under her from angry customers like the ones above. To her, the customer was not always right, and that's a great manager. That's the best way to tell if you have a good manager. See how the manager reacts when you have a negative customer, like a really rude customer. See if the manager takes your side. If the manager doesn't take your side, it's not a manager you want to work for. Last one was when I worked midnights at a grocery chain. I was not scheduled that night, so I was relaxing. I get a call from my brother, who worked there too, that the manager said I was supposed to be at work. Now, I had taken a picture of my schedule on my phone and logged it into my account, which had a copy of the schedule as well, and both said it was my night off. I asked to talk to the manager, and she said she was too busy, and if I didn't show up, I was going to be fired. I finally went in and only got her to talk to me via a store phone, and she still threatened me with my job. So I worked that night and reported her to HR, as they told me that not only was I in the right for not being on the schedule, but that she shouldn't have gone through my brother, as it was a private matter between she and I. Yeah. And what ended up happening though? Did she get written up? Did HR actually do something about it? And the thing about HR is HR most of the time is there to protect the company. They're not really there for you. But I've had bosses mess with my schedule. They change the schedule the night before, and then they wake me up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they say, where are you? It's disgusting. If you're going to change the schedule, you have to tell the person. And you cannot do something like that, like changing the night before, especially when the person's a day off. So they can't do something like that to you, Shadow Snake. But I'm sorry you went through that. Next one is from Daniel280699. Hi, Pro. Here's another story I just encountered for a month ago with a robber. I work in retail in Denmark as a supervisor. I work on my evening shift, and everything was going smoothly, as you can imagine. But then suddenly my colleague informs me that a man wearing a black cap and carrying a large black empty bag just entered the store. I immediately took the hint that he was a possible shoplifter, so I walked around the store to find that man. Then I found him in the coffee section and saw his bag in a basket, and he was filling it up with coffee. So I made a decision and chose to strategically position myself past the last payment option at the checkout. After a short while, he walks up and passes the checkout counter as if nothing had happened. I tell him that I would like to see inside his bag. He just ignores me, so I decide to grab the bag. What I'll say about this is, stores can ask you to check your bag, at least in my country in America. In a lot of states, they can. I don't know about your country if they can do that. But you said you grabbed the bag. The thief resists me by pulling his bag back, so it became a tug of war. I wouldn't have grabbed the bag if I wasn't sure there was something in it. But that's when I saw the basket he had was left empty. The tug of war continues inside the entrance, and the thief kicks me in the stomach, so I fall backwards and hit some items while I have my strong grip on the bag. My colleague comes to the rescue, and not only do I let go of the bag, and my colleague runs after him, and that results in me running with him. To make a long story short, we end up getting the items back. There was a potential attempted theft of $250. Unfortunately, the robber ran away, but the police came afterwards and questioned all parties involved. The police concluded that it was went from theft to robbery because of my kick to the stomach. That's true. And people don't know the difference between stealing something and robbing. The difference is that when somebody steals something, stealing something is a lot of times out of plain sight. So it's when somebody like puts something in their bag without you looking, that is basically stealing. However, though, if there is confrontation involved, so if they take something and then there's confrontation, there's physical confrontation involved, that's when it becomes a robbery. So a robbery charge is much more serious than a theft charge. The police also informed me that I can get a legal aid lawyer since I'm a victim in this case. I spoke to the boss afterwards, and I was praised for securing the goods, but also told not to be putting my own health at risk above all else. I know I shouldn't have grabbed the bag, but I was so sick and tired of all the thefts we had lately. If I'd been food if it had been food they had taken, I would understand, but that still doesn't make it okay to steal. I found out that the robber was loaded with drugs, so the situation could have looked ugly if he had a weapon. Yeah, and Daniel, what I'll say is don't do stuff like that. Even if they're stealing stuff from the store, don't do it. It's not worth risking your life for these corporations. These corporations, a lot of times, they don't care about you. So even if you see people do it, if anything, call the police, maybe tell the manager, but don't actually try to, confront these guys because it's not worth it. Like I said earlier, I had a coworker who confronted a shoplifter, and he had, and what the shoplifter did was he had pushed her into an end cap, and she went to a hospital. She ended up making a recovery, and she was fine, but that was like an assault that happened in my store. And I will say this is your country, Denmark, seems to value your workers much more than my country in America, because what I will say is that in America, if that happened in my store and I did that and I grabbed that bag, I would have been fired. In most American stores, if somebody did something like that, they grabbed the bag, they would have been fired. You were praised as a hero, you were told not to do it again, but you were not terminated from your job. But in a lot of places in America, if you did something like that, they would fire you. But I'm glad that you're okay, and I hope that experience didn't affect your mental health too much. But also on top of that, what a lot of people don't know is that when stores routinely get stuff stolen, what happens is stores will actually a lot of times cut their hours to cover their losses. They will do crap like that. They do that crap all the time, and it affects the employees' hours. And that might have been happening to you. You might have had your hours cut because there was just so much shoplifting, and you got frustrated. And usually, places that have a lot of shoplifting the police don't take action. So it's in places where the laws are kind of weak. That's where shoplifting will happen. So, like for example, in California, the reason that shoplifting exploded in California was because they passed a law where it was like, if you steal like under $950 for stuff, that it is not a felony. And what happened was after that, shoplifting just skyrocketed. And I think that law was repealed in a referendum. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's basically what happens is that shoplifting is very high in areas that have very weak laws. And I don't know what the laws are like in your country, or if the police are, are strict on this type of stuff. But that could be a reason for it, is that the laws could be very weak. Next one is from Zeno. Zeno117. Short story, but the grocery store I worked at had a team leader overnight that would smoke crack every night and always show up late. What? And no matter how much we complained, management never did anything about it. We had to deal with that just for weeks, and tensions were high. It wasn't until he was caught red-handed that something was finally done. He just said to the manager, I guess I don't have a job anymore, and he left. What the hell? Um, I'm honestly surprised the management didn't do anything about that, because the management could get sued for having a situation like that and putting employees in danger. Somebody smoking drugs, crack. What the hell? You know, the fact that, and doing drugs is bad enough, but why the hell would somebody do drugs, especially like crack, at their job? What the hell? At least the guy left. I guess the situation could have been much more ugly. Next one is from Phantom Angel, 2004. I used to work in a deli in a grocery store a couple of years ago. One day when I came in for my shift, I noticed pictures of a man posted all over the store, and was then notified that a card skimmer was found on one of the checkout aisles, and the man in the photo was the suspected scammer. What a card skimmer basically is it's these devices that people will attach that little like credit card reader. So you know that little computer with a credit card reader and like the pen, the electronic pen on it. Scammers will attach a skimmer to it, to the top of it. It's like this little small thin layer. It looks just like it looks just like a regular the regular card reader thing. But what happens is when you swipe your credit card or you type in your PIN number for your bank, it will actually steal your information. So it'll steal your credit card information and all of that stuff. And that's how scammers steal credit card information a lot of times. That actually happened to my dad. My dad went to a Costco gas station because the Costco gas was so cheap, and he used his credit card, and somebody had gotten his credit card information. And what happened was, like a week later, somebody was buying expensive suits in Manhattan with my dad's credit card, but the credit card was the charge was denied, and he shut down his credit card. And I asked my dad, like, where did you shop? And he's like, I went to a gas station the other night. And I'm like, don't use your credit card at places like that, because gas station pumps, especially gas station pumps, are the places where the skimmers appear a lot of times. And the reason for that is because there isn't that much supervision around that. And even when somebody puts a skimmer on that, the camera, like a lot of times employees aren't paying attention to the camera. So that's what I'll say is gas stations specifically, they're very, very high risk of having a skimmer in them. Witnesses said the man was pretending to look around, and it looked like a device was hidden in his jacket sleeve. Some of my coworkers said they started getting unverified charges to their bank accounts. Thankfully, I never used the aisle the skimmer was on, so my account was safe. I stopped working at that store not long after, and the scammer was never caught to my knowledge. Yeah, oh man. But I will say though, how the hell did he manage to do that? Because to put a skimmer onto a device, it takes a couple minutes to install it. And so if he did it in an aisle, he probably either did it very early in the morning when there was barely anyone there, or at night. He probably did it at night when there was probably nobody on the register, because what happens is companies will want, during like night shifts especially, or like later in the afternoon, companies will make the cashier constantly run back and forth doing something in the aisle, and that's probably what he did. He probably waited until there was busy in the aisle and there wasn't anybody on the register, and he probably installed the skimmer at that point there. Next one from Ultras 9185. Not a retail story, but a group project one. I was assigned a group presentation at the beginning of the semester, and our group was scheduled to present the week before the final. After looking over the outline for how the presentation should be formatted, one group member, I'd call her D, decided she'd cover the introduction. It should have been a simple task, but every class meeting she'd have an excuse as why she didn't do it yet or couldn't do it now. On top of that, another member, I'll call him R, stopped showing up to class and wasn't responding in the group chat. I figured it should be fine since an introduction is easy to make, and we still had about 2 months to make the presentation. The main issue was that D rarely attended our meetings after class, and when she did, if I ever criticized her for anything at all, she'd accuse me of being sexist and or racist, even if all I did was reiterate what our topic was. My God. As the day of our presentation grew closer, the pressure grew for our group. We were reportedly given the drafts of our presentation to refine it. But D wasn't helping with her parts, including the part of her conclusion where we all had to write something about what we learned. All while R was still radio silent. On the day of the presentation, before we submitted it, it was pointed out that D never wrote her part of the conclusion. So I'm pretty sure another member wrote it for her, and she read it off the slide during the presentation. The presentation went okay, but most of the group didn't feel great about it. R never showed up, so he left his name off the final submission, and D seemed underprepared for the actual presentation. I've worked with difficult people, but for a grade in school, this was one of the worst instances. And I will tell you something about this, Ultras. I have experience with these bad group projects. If you have a situation like that, tell the teacher. tell the teacher. Try to reason with the person at first. Try to tell them like you got to do your work. But if they don't listen to you, tell the teacher. And here's what I'll say about that, ultras, is don't feel like being a don't worry about being called a snitch, because that's not a snitch. Snitch is when you are a part of something bad and then you tell on somebody. You should not have to do more work or get a bad grade because somebody is being stupid and somebody is not doing their job. That is not on your responsibility. That is basically their responsibility. So that's what I would say about it, is that don't worry about it. If somebody is not doing their work, tell the teacher. I had a situation where I worked in a group project and I was working with a few girls, and there was this one girl in our class who she did a little bit extra work, where on top of that, she would also proofread, our drafts every time we had to submit part of our assignment, and she would, correct any mistakes we made, and she did a little bit of extra work, and I felt bad for her. That what I did was I told her on the last week that I'll do her part also, so that she didn't have to do it, and she thanked me, and she was great. But then there was another girl in that same group, and she had to submit her part, so I basically submitted my part, that other girl's part, and then that other girl, the third girl, we were waiting for her to submit her part. And guess what? She says it is like 10 p.m. The assignment is due at 11:59, p.m. And she says, I can't do it. I'll do it tomorrow. We're like, the assignment is due tomorrow. And she says, I'm at work right now. I can't do it. And so what I did was I had to jump on my computer and I typed it up, and I did, 3 parts that night. And I rushed and I finished it at like around 11 something. So I rushed through and I got her part done, but that was not fun. And what happened is we had to grade our group members every week. We had to, we got an email from the teacher. We had to grade our group members from 1 to 10. She had a little button that we would hit between 1 to 10, but I didn't hit the button. I refused to hit the button. And what I did was I said, reply to the teacher and said I give her a 0, because the lowest you could give was 1. And I gave that other person a 0. And I said she did not do her work at all. Me and this one girl, we did our work. We worked together, but the other girl, she didn't do anything on that 4th part. And so the 4th part, I gave her basically a 0. And then what she did was, I don't know what the teacher did after that, but that girl texted us, and she texted us in the group chat, and she started saying like, how could you do this to me? It's like, I have responsibilities, I have work right now, like, why are you talking to the teacher like about me, saying I'm not caring, blah blah blah, a bunch of this stuff. I didn't reply to that. I don't care if she has responsibilities. Everyone has responsibilities, but you shouldn't be taking a class if you're not going to be doing work. But that's basically it. That's what's the nightmare is about group projects, is a lot of times people don't feel like doing the work and want to throw it on others. Next one we have is from Noob's brother. Hey, professional, worked in the retail industry for a few years. I don't have a specific situation, but a few bursts of situations. Once a customer yelled at me for pricing something wrong, only for me to find out they were looking at the price per unit and not the actual price itself. Man, yeah. The reason that price per unit is there is that when you're buying like a pack of stuff, is so that customers can see where you're getting the better deal. So like, if you're buying like, 10 waters, instead of like, 2 waters, for example, like a pack of 2, the reason that there's price per unit is it'll tell you how much each water costs in the price per unit, so you can see that you're getting a better deal. But they were probably running a scam. That's probably what they were doing. They were hoping you just give it to them by complaining. Another customer came in with $1,000 for goods with 2 carts, took me 30 minutes and had to leave late. Finally, after being the last guy to close, I was told I was being put on a performance plan. I never came back after that. What? My God. So you had to leave late because a customer was buying so much stuff with 2 carts, and they put you in a performance plan? Good you left that place, Noobs. I'm sorry you dealt with that. Good you left that place. That's just... If a company cannot realize why you stayed late, they're stupid. And it's like with these companies is you have to be on the dot right away. You have to be right there on the dot, but then they also expect you to stay late. That's it. And if you do stay late to, help them, they also criticize you. So there's times where companies will expect you to stay late, but then they'll tell you no overtime. Why do you expect us to stay late if you're not going to pay us overtime? My God. Next one is from GTA Gar. This story happened a few days ago. I was working at a busy Sunday shift at my dishwashing job when a delivery of a ton of eggs came in. It was heavy enough to have to be put on one of those rollers. The delivery guy who brought it in was very scrawny, and he had to bring it down the 20 steps to the basement. And since I'm pretty strong, I suggested that I take it down, but he didn't listen. As soon as he rolled them down the first step, he and all of the eggs went tumbling down the stairs, making a huge mess. Needless to say, my boss and I were both pissed that he didn't listen to me, but glad he only got a couple bruises. Luckily, when he came back with another delivery of eggs a few days later, he let me take it down the stairs, and everything went smoothly. Ooh, and George Washington saw a reply to him. Let me guess, they made you clean it? And he said no. Thankfully, I have a great boss that treats his employees well. My boss actually cleaned it up since everyone was getting swamped, and he had nothing else to do. That's a good boss. That's a good boss that you want to work with. That is. That a boss that didn't make you clean that up. So many other bosses would have made you clean that up, even if it wasn't your fault. But that's a good boss. That's a boss who cares about his guys. But I will say also, this reminds me of one situation where I pulled up when I was pulling up on a night shift once. I pulled up and the delivery truck was in the parking lot. And while the delivery truck was in the parking lot, what happened is that the truck was parked at like a weird angle where we would always park the truck back to the front door, backing up to the front door because we didn't have a ramp in the back. So what happened is the truck was parked like sideways in the parking lot. And what I noticed is there's like a lot of boxes and stuff that was spilled all over the parking lot. And I asked my supervisor, I'm like, what's going on? The supervisor says that the truck driver didn't listen to me. He decided to park it here, and when he was bringing out the pallet snapped at that angle because he had the truck angled a specific way, and it was on a bump. And when he brought that pallet out, the pallet snapped, and all the stuff spilled in the parking lot, and we had to clean it up. And I had to walk around the parking lot, clean up a bunch of stuff that's fell out of the pallet, throw it in boxes, and then another separate bin for all the items that were damaged. And then what happened is, he was bringing out the second pallet later on. Didn't want to move the truck even though we told him to. He said, I'm going to bring it out here. It snapped. Stuff went all over the parking lot, and we had to clean it up again. And there were shampoos even and toothpaste that went over the parking lot. It was disgusting. I had to clean that up. And then the third pallet he brought out, it snapped again, and I had to clean that up again. And then the truck driver finally said, okay, I'll park it where you guys want me to, after he destroyed so much merchandise. Complete idiot. But good, you got a great manager there, Gar, who helped you out and didn't make you clean it up at least. Next one is from Old Gold 8247. Worked at a KFC that was always understaffed and incredibly stressful for everyone. It was so bad that one day that one of my coworkers told me this is too much, and he just left mid-shift and never came back. 2 days later, I found out he had taken his life that day. Oh my god, I'm sorry, Old Gold 8247, and I'm sorry about what happened to your friend. I'm sorry. And that what I'll say about this is that there are so many nasty customers that they treat their employee they treat the retail and the fast food workers like crap. They consider them like college dropouts or delinquents or whatever else. And they treat these guys so badly. Like the public will just treat workers in fast food and retail so badly. And don't ever treat anybody badly, because you don't know what they're going through in their personal time. So always try to be as nice as possible to everyone. And about the stores being understaffed, I've seen it happen in retail. I haven't worked in the food industry, but I've seen it in retail where stores get really understaffed, and you feel like you're the only one there. And you are the only one on the register. Nobody's coming to help you, and the customers are getting mad at you. They're freaking out on you. That they're acting like it's your fault, even though it's the company's fault for not staffing more people. And I'm sorry about what happened to your friend, Old Gold. I'm sorry. You have my condolences. Just like I said, is that always treat everybody with respect, because you never know what somebody is going through. And the next one is from TY, the YouTube guy, 8415. I was once accused of racism when I set down a customer's change on the counter since they didn't take it from my hand for 5 seconds. I was willing to stand there holding it. What? Wait. You were accused of racism when you set down a customer's change on the counter since they didn't take it from my hand. How? So you gave them change in your hand. They didn't want to take it. And then you put it on the counter and they accused you of racism for that? What? This person an idiot? Like, I don't know what. You're trying to give them the money, they don't take it, and then, man, that was it. Oh man, what? Some customers are just so stupid. They were probably trying to cause a scene and get free stuff as well. Next one is from Dark Lord Vader. I was a keyholdy at GameStop training to be an assistant manager. First time I got left alone, a homeless guy walked in stoned and tried to break into our storage room, claiming his girlfriend was incapacitated in there. What? I called the cops and they made a show of searching our storage room to make sure nobody was being kept up there. Same store, different day. And I will say about this is that the police still had to search the room, because if somebody makes a complaint and says somebody's being held hostage there or something like that, the police still have to search the room, even if the person that's making those accusations seems crazy. But so the police really had no choice; they had to search the room. But the guy who came in is an idiot. Same store, different day. Some little asshole 12-year-old punk threw an empty Slurpee cup at me because he wouldn't stop dropping F-bombs around these young kids getting Roblox cards with their parents. That is assault right there. Him throwing something like that's assault. And last one, kid trying to get his grandma to buy him GTA 5 because she didn't speak English. Surprised the hell out of him when I explained to her in Spanish what happens in that game. Trevor killing Johnny is an example, and she flipped out on him. Oh, man. That is, yeah, and that's the thing is, a lot of these kids, they will push their parents and their grandparents to buy them these games, but the parents don't even know what's in these games, and they just basically give in because the kid just keeps complaining, and they'll buy it for them. But you did the right thing. You did the right thing explaining, and I'm assuming this kid was like really young also, that he was trying to get his grandma to buy the game for him too. And next one from Composite Creativity. Hey Pro, this one's not so much horror, but just plain ridiculous. In early 2017, I used to work at one branch of a supermarket in Pennsylvania called Wise Markets, if you heard of it. I wanted a change of pace from being at the express lane register. For a brief time, I was assigned to the beer section to work alongside the other guy who already worked the register there, around the time when the PA started allowing the controlled sales of beer in grocery stores. Pennsylvania's laws back then, I'm not sure what the rules are now, only permitted customers to buy 2 6-packs or a single 12-pack in one purchase. If customers wanted to buy more that day, they'd have to take their purchase back to their cars and make another trip to get more. A woman came over and attempted to buy more alcoholic beverages than what we could literally sell in one trip. When my coworker and I tried to explain this to her, she got pissed off. The supervisor for that section of the store comes over, and the lady tries to pull a bullshit misogyny card by claiming to him that we refuse to sell the alcohol to her because she's a woman. What? No. And I will say this: I've had customers try to buy expired food, so expired food or expired milk, and I tell them I can't sell this to you. I check the date on it, and they start freaking out, saying I still want it. And a lot of times these people are pulling a scam, because if you sell it to them, what happens is if you sell it to them, they can sue you at that point. A lot of places they can sue you. And what I will also say about this is, probably not, but it's also possible she might have been an undercover cop. Some undercover cops, they will actually go into a place and they'll try to basically get stores to do stuff like this, to sell, alcohol to a minor. Or break some other alcohol law that they have, like in this case, like, buying more than you're allowed. Our supervisor was able to get her to leave by completing the transaction. I don't remember if the lady made the required separate trips or just bought less beer. It's been 8 years. After she left, our supervisor reassured us that we did nothing wrong. He knew the bitch was being a Karen. Yeah, and your supervisor should not have done that, though. It's good your supervisor had your back, but the supervisor shouldn't have done that, because, like I said, this could have been an undercover cop, but it wasn't then at that point. It was just a woman being stupid. Next one from True Evil 6491. Might as well share mine. I work in a store that deals with secondhand goods, meaning we buy things from the public for 8 in-store credit or cash in hand, and most of the horrors come from Sunday shifts. People just seem to be more stupid. Most polite word I can use on a Sunday with the following examples. People banging on the windows outside waiting for us to open. It's almost like a scene from a zombie movie, and has to be one of the most pathetic and sad things I've seen. Yeah, and that's what I'll say is I've seen this happen where when we open the store on holidays, customers will be there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's people last-minute shoppers, people who did not buy a gift. Like, this happens on, like, days like, Christmas. I never worked on a Christmas day, but I've heard about this happening, that customers will be waiting right at on that day, on 7 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. PS5s that are so dirty, they've turned brown. People bringing in hundreds of DVDs worth only a penny each, waiting for potentially hours for us to price them up for less than £10. Once I went through through around 450 of these. Took me 4 hours to get them priced up, and took out the cases all for a measly £8. Who would wait that long just for £8? Oh my god! I got called little tard because I failed an item that was worth £2. Had a woman ask me if we sold phones. while standing right in front of where the phones are. Oh my god. Once had an Xbox 360 come in, and the compartment where the hard drive goes was full of dead bugs, spiders included. Ugh. Ugh. Some old guy who was a regular, see him every few weeks bringing in pornographic material and looking so proud of the fact that he has them, then buys them all back days later. Ugh. Had another really annoying woman who was a regular who would buy phones, then refund them less than an hour later. We banned her from getting refunds in our stores. We were just sick of it wasting our time. She was probably running some kind of scam. She actually might have been bringing in, she might have been replacing them with phones that she already had, like bad phones. One time, the shopping center I work at had a power outage, and we just had some guy complain we couldn't buy his Apple Watch because we couldn't test it because there was no power. Called us all dickheads like it's our fault there's an outage in the entire shopping center. We get the Karens who demand to speak to a manager, and they just repeat what I just said when it comes to policy, mostly of refunds, word for word. Idiots who watch us test their items through the glass of the test area, praying their items passes the test just so they can get cash for it, distracting us. It's hard to work with someone's face pressed against the glass. And that's a scam, is when customers were doing refunds, they would talk like really fast to you. Like they would constantly keep talking to you in a conversation. And a lot of times the guys were wearing like really fancy suits. It was like a con scam. And they were trying to talk you. They kept talking to you, and they would oftentimes say like really nice things about you to try to keep you distracted and then basically get their refund done. There are more, but I think I've said enough. Customers are just idiots. And in my line of work, we are almost never right. They take that as a form of entitlement and abuse it, thinking we have to do everything they say despite the policies we have. Yeah, and that's the problem with these companies giving entitled customers what they want. And I really hope that you did not take that Xbox 360 that had all those bugs in it. That's disgusting. But when customers see that, they see when you give other customers free stuff for being annoying, and then they will be encouraged by it and they'll do it. So you got to take a stand and not let them do stuff like this. Next one is from Gaming Bickle. One crazy retail story I'd like to share. It was April 2022, and when I was working at Walgreens, I was just doing my job, and then my supervisor told me to do something, and I said I would do the task after I was facing the shelves. The next day I was then told I was not allowed to come into work for an entire week because according to my supervisors, they said I told them I don't have to do this task. Wait. So April 2022, you were working at Walgreens, you were doing your job, and my supervisor told me to do something, and I said I would do the task after I was facing the shelves, and you were scolded for that because according to my supervisors, they said that I told them I don't have to do this task. No, which confused me because I always did my work, but on that particular day, I was leaving in 5 minutes after not only facing shelves, but sweeping floors and cleaning up messes on the counters. I tried to talk to my boss, and I told her I never said that to my supervisors, and maybe it was a miscommunication. My boss then told me that because I was lying, I got my entire work schedule cut for 2 weeks, which upset me, and my hours got cut in the process. If I went back in time, I would have just quit because I am not interested in working with people who make false accusations on me, but other employees as well. I'm sorry you went through that, Gaming Bickle, and that is BS. And the thing is that some managers are in such a power trip that even if you tell them, hold on, you just wait a minute, I'll do this in a moment, for them that basically seems like you're insulting them. If you tell them to hold on, wait a moment, they expect you to do everything pronto, right away. And when they don't have their way, they make up crap like this about you. Man, I'm sorry you went through that crap, dude. And next one is from Battle Squeak 5838. I worked at McDonald's with a place in high school. The amount of kids that would pee in the slides was ridiculous. Ugh. And not only would they pee, they would throw garbage, they would poop. When I was a kid, I used to play in those in McDonald's. I never did stuff like that, but I saw so much garbage in there. I even saw poop in those, and that's why I stopped going into those when I was a kid. And that's why McDonald's largely doesn't have that anymore today. McDonald's doesn't have the slides. They don't have those little parks they had for kids back in the day, because there would be such messes. People would leave such messes behind, and that's why they don't have that anymore, because the amount of cleaning that they would have to do for stuff like that. Next one is from Azan. Hi, Pro. I live in the UK. When I was working in retail last year, my manager used to call me nonstop on my phone, calling me in for overtime, as a lot of the staff would call in sick, and he was low on staff in general at that time. He would call me at 7 a.m., and if I was unable to come into work, he would start yelling at me on the phone and being very rude, calling me incompetent and disloyal to the company. What? Waking you up at 7 o'clock in the morning. This reminds me of my manager, too. I remember him once saying, sometimes I wonder what they were thinking when they hired such a lazy worker like you and cut the call on me. I wonder how he would feel if someone called him at 7 o'clock in the morning and yelled at him. I started feeling like I had to come in and used to work over 35 hours a week. Every time he would call me, however, he used to not let me clock in, as he said the clock machine would play up and it would be better if he did it manually himself. Turns out that was the biggest mistake in my life because I never got paid for any of that overtime. And when I confronted him about that, he would brush it off and say he would sort it by next paycheck and not to worry. He would often say, God, how many times are you going to ask me? I told you so many times already, I'll sort it out on the next paycheck. That's your pay. He shouldn't be getting pissed at you for asking about it. Eventually, I stopped asking, as it just puts me off. He ended up moving stores 2 months later, and I still didn't receive a penny of that overtime till today. I never worked a single overtime again after that. P.S. Forgot to mention, I was also a student trying to balance work and study. Oh, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you went through that, Azan. And I will say this, the exact same thing probably happened to me. I don't have 100% proof that my manager scammed me, but when I went to one of my coworkers' wedding, I went to my coworkers' wedding 2 years ago, and when I went to their wedding, what happened is during the wedding I met one of my other coworkers, and she told me how her boss would scam her and steal from her paychecks. And about that, she told me she found out about it because she would constantly add up her hours and see how much, was actually on the paycheck. And me, I never did that. I never added up hours once. And it was such a stupid thing because I thought that because of the computer that it would be safe, but managers can mess with that. And so that was one mistake that I made. And so he was scamming from you. He stole from you. He's a criminal. That guy's a criminal. What he did to you, that was a crime, Azan. I'm sorry that happened to you, dude. I really am sorry, but everyone always make sure that when you're working, even if you have a boss you think you can trust, there's no harm in ever, adding up the hours that you have on your check. Add that up, check that, see if everything matches up. Because people will try to scam you. And my dad, when he worked in a factory, he said the same thing happened to him. And my dad said to me this. He said, so many times I was underpaid for hours that I should have been paid for, but I was never overpaid. They never paid me too much. They always paid me too little. So my dad always said. And that is a life lesson there. I'm sorry that happened to you, Azan. And next one is from Tactical 5. I have a few crazy retail stories. So I used to work at a big box hardware store, and most of the time it was pretty quiet. But whenever things did happen, it would be crazy. One thing we had a power problem with was theft, predominantly by crackheads who would want to pawn off tools. One time a pack of 4 came in, 2 were distracted, and the other 2 put on Wolverine masks and they sprinted out the store with 4 different brands of tools. What? Another crazy thing happened is when 2 new teen cashiers somehow stole $3,000 from registers over the span of 3 months. One was caught and just fired, but for the other guy, suspected that management kept him until he hit 18, and then the felony minimum caused some serious discussion about ethically at work. But at the same time, you shouldn't be stealing in the first place. But still sad. I would like to hear your take on this. The thing is that is a very weird case. Knowing that somebody is stealing money, for example, and you wait until they turn 18 just so that they can have a felony, because when they are under 18, they're going to be charged as a minor, so the punishment is going to be a lot less than being charged as an adult. But they wouldn't be able to give them adult charges on what they were committing when they were 17. But when they committed anything when they were 18, that's the point when they could give them adult charges. But that's also risky at the same time too, because you're employing a thief, you're employing somebody that's stealing from you, knowing that they're stealing from you, you're waiting till they're 18 just so that they can get a bigger punishment. That's just weird. And a judge would look at that case. And he would say that you knew this person was stealing and you're waiting until they're turning 18. It's the weird situation. I also want to comment on how rude the customers can be. Just because you're ordering a $500,000 project doesn't make you superior to anyone. Yeah, and customers will a lot of times think that they are superior to retail workers. HR is horrendous too. 10 p.m. closing shift, and the next day you have 6 a.m. morning shift. Ugh, yeah. I don't know how, and they expect you to be fully awake the next day too. And what I'll say here about this, that's basically what we call a smash and grab. What we have right here is people will actually come in broad daylight in masks, and they will rob the store. They'll steal all the valuables, and they can steal hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise in just a few minutes and just run out the store, possibly even thousands of dollars. And these are people that do this regularly. They plan this stuff out. But I've seen a guy once where there was a guy who I didn't see him stealing in the act, but I found out what happened. A guy came in with a black garbage bag into the store. I guess I didn't see it. He probably hid it in his clothes or something like that, but I didn't see him come in with the garbage bag itself. And then what happened was I heard the lady who worked in the cosmetics department, and she was screaming and saying, "Somebody call the police!" And she's chasing this guy, and they're basically having like a tug of war in like a little door room over the black garbage bag. And he eventually drops the bag and runs away. And in the bag was just all this, cough and cold medicine, like hundreds of dollars worth of stuff. And apparently the guy was trying to make meth. Apparently that's what he was trying to do with that stuff. And that is pretty much also our last comment there. Yeah, that is our last one there. We did over 40 comments today, guys. So thank you guys for we did 42 stories, 42 comments. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys like this video, if you like this series, let me know down below. Make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed this, because I can make more videos like this in the future. But I would do videos like this once a month if I'm going to be doing them. My channel update videos usually. I don't want it to seem like I'm milking a series like this, but let me know down below if you enjoyed content like this. So again, thank you guys for your support. Thank you everybody who left a comment. And always leave a comment on my post, because you never know, your comment might appear in one of my videos. Thank you everybody also for the support on my channel. I appreciate it. Without you guys, I wouldn't be where I am today. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.